I don't ever record the Wednesday night session just because, well, I just don't. Okay, I'm recording now, so now's the time we gotta keep this a family show. I'm telling that to myself, not you all, mostly. So, speaking of which, even though this isn't Security Plus, I am happy to report to you all that I finished my A+ 1000 series certification 2 days ago. So I got that out of the way. So
Did you find it much different, or was it still pretty similar?
The 900, you know what? Except for those new areas I pointed out on Tuesday, I really didn't see much difference. And one of the areas that I was kind of concerned about was the scripting part on the 1000. Thank you, Kelly. Someone's playing like a game back there. It's like, you know those games in the arcade where like you're supposed to pound those things as they come up? That's what it sounds like.
Like a pinball machine or something?
No. I'm talking about one of those pound things. You know those little characters come up, you gotta pound them back in?
Oh, whack-a-mole. Yeah.
Whack-a-mole, yeah. Whack-a-mole, yeah. Someone's playing whack-a-mole back there. I forgot what it was called. Anyway, I did not see much difference in the 900 series. I thought the 1002 exam was quite a bit more tricky than the 1001 because to me, I don't know. It was a question set that I got. There were a lot of coin flip answers. There were a lot of 50-50 balls, but fortunately I got most of them right. And like there's a new domain on script, not domain. There's a new section on scripting, and I thought, well, am I going to have to know how to, or I know, are people going to have to read a lot of programming scripts? And the answer was no. You just have to know which script goes with this extension. You'll be fine. But anyway, that's A+ stuff. But I didn't find it to be that much different than 900, really.
All right, cool.
So, yeah, it's funny. They have a section on Active Directory in 1000. I didn't get a single question on Active Directory. Now, I'm sure somebody will. I just happen to not. But, I mean, look, these CompTIA exams, you're talking 700 lines for 90 questions. You're just not going to get asked about everything. That's the reality. Anyway, John, you're the one who requested this whole thing about securing an access point. Does this help you out?
Oh, yeah. Super helpful.
Good. All right. Oh, that's not whack-a-mole. That's somebody typing back there. Sheesh. Are you the one that's pounding the keyboard into the ground, John? Well, as long as you're having fun with it, that's good. Okay. All right. So back to the Security Plus show we go. All right. Since I don't get in here all that often, let me bring up, where did I put this? Let me bring up the objectives from the current exam. That way, if it triggers any questions for y'all, we can see about maybe trying to help you out here. Unless some of you have specific questions. If anybody's got specific questions. Risk management. All right, got a whole domain on that.
Oh, yeah.
Biggest thing with the risk management domain for the exam, first of all, understanding the terms and definitions. And then secondly, I knew you were going to ask, I didn't know you were going to ask, I figured you were going to ask the formulas. So, okay, so getting to risk management, I'm just going to go through these pages. Stop me if you want me to So anyway, okay, what was I going to get at? Oh yeah, all right. So first of all, I'm just going to go through this list. Hey John, you want to mute yourself if you're not talking? Pretty please.
Can I still record if I mute?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm recording too. I'm going to post it online after we're done anyway. So. Let's see. Okay. Agreement types, formulas, things like that. All right. So make sure you for risk assessment, risk management on the exam. Yes, first thing to make sure of is you understand your agreement types. Do keep this number in mind: 99.999%, the 5 nines. That's an industry standard kind of. Oh, no worries, John. No worries at all. That's the industry standard for uptime for servers. Of course, Microsoft's not going to give you that much of a guarantee, but 99.999% uptime is kind of a standard, I guess, for that. So people try to work out that agreement. The ISA, Information Service Agreement, that's more for your platform and infrastructure stuff. So that kind of guarantees that, let's say if you're using a cloud service, your operating systems will be available, virtual networks that you set up will be available. This also deals with security requirements that you might have. So, with all of these different laws out there and regulations with data, one thing that you have to make very clear for anything with cloud storage is who is ultimately responsible for security. Now, of course, if there's a lawsuit, it's going to be against the company, not the cloud service necessarily. But somehow that's got to be written into the deal, who's responsible for security. The most important thing is what is each side doing to cover their, oh yeah, this is family rated, backsides, okay? What are they doing to cover their backsides? So, subversive visions. Okay, someone's trying to be like me when I sign up and do these things and go with the fake names. Very nice. Well done. Well played. All right. Memorandum of Understanding, MO is is your less formal type of agreement. Keep that as a term here. Okay. When you're talking formulas, all right. Let me find where is it? Let me find ARO here. Hang on. Dum. Oh yeah, all the quantitative stuff. See, I just didn't scroll far enough here. Okay. So, first thing, before I get into the formulas, first thing you got to understand is the difference between qualitative and quantitative risk analysis. You probably will read many explanations on the subject, okay? Let me just say it this way. Qualitative is subjective, quantitative is objective. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that helps me out like a tiny bit. Qualitative is a guess, quantitative is fact. How's that? Qualitative says on a scale of 1 to 5, if this goes wrong, this is a scale 4 problem, or this is a 3 on the scale of 1 to 5 problem. Quantitative says, if this goes wrong, I lose $100,000. See what I mean? It's actually pretty cut and dry, the difference between those two, okay? When it comes to risk assessment on any project, a lot of businesses will do both. Now, Security Plus exam doesn't have anything on like, oh, which kind of risk assessment should you use in this situation? Every business is different. But you do need to understand the difference between the two. You need to be able to identify, based on a test question, if they are using quantitative or qualitative analysis. If you just think quantity is amount, as far as amount, you'll be fine, okay? Now, when it comes to risk assessment, when it comes to quantitative analysis, there are 3 formulas that you need to know for the exam. SLE, ALE, and ARO. John, and Mr. Visions over there, is this kind of, you talk about formulas you wanted and all that? By the way, I don't know if it's Mr. Visions, but subversive, whoever you are. I love it. That's funny. I was actually attending a CompTIA webinar one time. I don't know if you guys will think this is funny, but they had like 6 weeks in a row, and every week I signed in as somebody different. See, Justin, oh, Justin gave himself up. All right, well, see, I never did that when I signed in as an anonymous person. But let's see if anybody knows this reference, okay? First time I signed in as Tom Servo.
Oh, that's Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, there you go.
Big fan.
I'm a big fan of the old stuff. The new one on Netflix was horrible, but the older ones were good.
I didn't really see the new one, but yeah, I love the old one. The movie was great too.
Don't bother.
Duly noted.
I mean, once Joel left, it just kind of went, sideways. Mike was okay, but the new version, 15 minutes and I punted it. It was like, you guys shouldn't just let that one lie. Anyway, sorry for the diversion there, but yeah, I signed in as Tom Servo, Crow T Robot, and then I asked a question. And I was like, "Oh," and Crow T Robot asked, and he's like, all shook it up. I'm like, "Yep, got him." Next time I signed in as one word, the most interesting man in the world. And I said I wasn't doing the Dos Equis commercials anymore, so I had to learn this A+ stuff, It was great.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so first one you want to go with, SLE, single loss expectancy. That's a very simple one. That's how much money. John, to answer your question, yes. As many different ways as you can get the formulas in, because you could get asked a number of different ways. Oh, this is how Justin works. He goes to the fake name, then gives his real name, and then gives us a plug. Justin, I must say that was very well played. Very nice. So, hey, that was well executed. Okay, so let's say something bad happens. It's going to cost you $10,000. Let me put these in bigger numbers so you can see. Okay. So let's say every time you have a problem, you estimate, like let's say a server goes down, whatever. At this point, it doesn't matter what the incident is. The fact is the incident is going to cost you $10,000. That's a single loss expectancy. All right. Now, what you must be careful about is, are they saying per incident or are they saying per hour or per other kind of unit? Because if they're saying $10,000 an hour and it's an 8-hour problem, well, your single loss expectancy is no longer 10,000. It's like 80,000 now. So you have to get the single loss expectancy down to a single number, regardless of timing, regardless of other factors. That's the number you're losing, okay? That's the first thing. Secondly, you have ARO, annualized rate of occurrence. Very simply put, this is the number of times per year you think the incident's going to occur, all right? So let's say it's twice a year, okay? Now, if you multiply these two, you have what is called the ALE, the annualized loss expectancy. Look at it this way. SLE, single hit. ALE, annual hit. So if we have a couple of incidents a year that cost us $10,000 a piece, your annual loss of expectancy is $20,000. Yes, it's that simple. Now, I've seen on exams where you've got to read things a little bit carefully, because check this one out. Let's say here's another one for you. Let's say you get a single loss expectancy of, let's just say $50,000. Big problem here. Every time something goes wrong, you lose 50 grand. That's enough to irritate anybody. But your ARO is once every 3 years. What's your approximate ALE? I don't need an exact amount right now, but what's your ballpark figure for ALE on this one?
A little under.
How much?
A little under 17,000.
Yeah, it's a third of this. Because if it's once every 3 years, well, now you're dividing by the number of years. So this would be 50,000, not multiplied by 3, divided by 3. See, if it happens more than once, here's the key. And there's different ways people explain this, okay, ladies and gents? But if it happens more than once a year, you're multiplying. But if it happens once every X number of years, you're dividing. So now your ALE is just over $16,000. It's 16,000, it's close to 17,000. Now, let me take this just one step further. This is not necessarily going to be an exam question, but so let's say somebody comes at these things and they have I didn't plan this very well, but let's say they have 18,000 to spend on mitigation. Mitigation being the act of reducing risk, not eliminating, but reducing it. Does it matter at this point which one you spend it on? See, I would spend it. I'll show you this one. Here's the business model, okay? I would spend it on this. Because if I'm spending 18,000 to get rid of a $20,000 problem, it's worth it. If I'm spending 18,000 to get rid of a $16,000 problem, okay, in real life you're thinking it's probably worth it, but if you had to pick between the two, I know it's very close. Point is, when you're talking about using resources to mitigate risk, you want to make sure that it's worth it. For example, if someone comes to you and says, well, my ALE is $1,000 and it's a multi-million-dollar business and nobody cares. But let's say you do a bunch of risk assessments and one ALE is like $1,000, another one is $50,000. You're going to want to do something about that $50,000 risk if you can, if you have the resources to do it. So, any questions on that concept? Listen, risk management is not just money too, it's people. Look at it this way. If you're trying to make it, if you want to put it in personal terms, let's say you're trying to figure out, all right, well, I'm trying to figure out how to best mitigate risk. Who can I not afford to tick off? If you don't want to tick off the CEO, you're going to be spending time and money to mitigate the risk. If it's, somebody who shows up once a year, you probably don't care. I'm not saying you don't care, but you understand what I mean by that? You're going to invest your risk management, you're going to invest your risk mitigation, easy for me to say, risk mitigation resources. You're going to invest the time and money on what will bite you the most if it happens. Whether it's personnel, pocketbook, any of the above. Same thing, government regulations. When I've done risk assessment before, it's like, one of the biggest things I have to figure out is, well, if something goes wrong, are the feds or the state government or some, agency going to come after us? See, at that point, it's not a money thing. See, that's qualitative risk analysis there. I used to work at a hospital a long time ago. Hospitals don't like bad PR. So, always try to do things to avoid that. All right.
I have a quick question, and I don't know if you remember or not, but I told you a couple weeks back, I'm only in the Microsoft Office level of my certification process.
Yes.
But I will be going on.
Yeah.
And
sure.
When you're talking risk mitigation,
yes.
say you have, I don't know, this is just completely arbitrary, but to make it easy.
Sure.
So you have 10 grand to invest, and you have one incident that's once a year at 10 grand, or another incident that's 5 times a year at 2 grand. Which one would you rather mitigate?
Flip a coin. Actually, at that point, you're looking at, it's the same amount of money. So now you're looking at which one's going to cause you more other like collateral damage if something goes wrong. And that's where you put the money. Because if you're talking 10,000 either way, I mean, at that point, I'm looking. Excuse me?
Look at you, Mr.
At that point, I'm looking more into, okay, what other factors do we have to these two risks? Because if you're looking strictly quantitative and it's the same amount, well, now it's basically a coin flip which way you go with the money. But if something it depends on the kind of company. If something happens 5 times a year and the employees notice and it's going to tick them off more, I'm probably putting the 10,000 toward that. Or if it's like a bigger incident that happens once a year, I'm probably putting the 10,000 toward that. So this is where the qualitative analysis comes into play. So let's assume for any risk management, and by the way, some of this is not necessarily going to be on the exam, but those of you going to graduate to cybersecurity jobs, you need to be able to work these things out. So was that you, Charles, that asked?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Charles, and for everybody else, at that point, I'm looking back now to see if there's been a qualitative risk, and I'm looking at impact. So, for example, if it's a project, if the money's going to be the same, but let's say there's going to be an incident that stops the project, then I'm going to put the resources toward that. If it's just a mere slight slowdown, maybe I don't put the money toward that. I know that's kind of an arbitrary answer for an arbitrary question, but the real life practical terms, if the money amount is the same, now I'm going to go back and look and do a qualitative risk analysis. And basically, for lack of a better term, I'm going to determine which one of the two scenarios you pointed out are going to cause a bigger headache. And that's going to be the one I'm going to mitigate first. And of course, I'll get other people involved in helping to make the decision, usually. But
yeah, I guess it was kind of, probably a moot point for most real life situations, but
actually, it's
coming
not.
down to
actually, it's
coming
not.
down
That's a good
to
point.
okay, coming down to most things being equal, even qualitatively.
Yeah.
Would you typically prefer the one that happens more often, or the one that's a bigger single issue?
I'm going to answer it this way. Whatever's going to cause the bigger headache in the long run, that's the one I'm addressing first. It's sort of like, okay, if a server slows down a few times a year versus one that's going to crash once a year, I'm going to worry about the one that's going to crash because the crash could cause important data loss and other stuff. So at that point, I would get other people involved to see what's the biggest impact, what do we need to cover the most. I mean, sometimes it's not easy to make these decisions. No one said it was. Unfortunately, on the exam, you don't have to make those decisions. You just have to know how to get the numbers in play and when to use quantitative and qualitative risk analysis. Charles, that's a very situational deal. But basically, you're always going to be able to find one that's going to have more impact than the other. Always. Even if it's really close. So. Look, we do the same. Listen, we do the same thing with our courses. Which courses are we going to do next? Because we have a couple of pretty diverse groups of audiences, veterans, and then also the schools. And we've been fortunate enough where we've been able to do a pretty good balancing act on both. But every once in a while, we got to push one in front of the other. And Charles, another thing with I'll just give you an example with us. It's really time of year. has a lot to do with it. We try to get all the new like Office and Adobe courses out right before the school year starts, which is going to be 2 months from now. So a lot of it also depends on which time of year you're doing this. Okay, continuing with the highlights of the risk stuff. Here's something else for Security Plus you all need to know. Well, be able to take and look at a risk response and figure out what kind of risk response it is. There's 4: accept, transfer, avoid, and mitigate. Now, here's the thing. A couple of these sound kind of similar, so you got to be a little careful here. All right. Basically, acceptance doesn't just mean we don't do anything. Acceptance is we reduce risk as much as we possible. We know there's going to be some risk. Every project you do has risk. The point is, what risk are we willing to accept? What risk are we willing to absorb? And that's your acceptance. Transfer, best example with transfer is, it's almost, I've seen it also called risk sharing, like buying insurance. It's good risk transfer. Because if something goes wrong, the insurance company pays for it. You're paying a little money up front, but, or it's like people who keep lawyers on retainers. Same kind of thing. Avoiding a risk, all right, doesn't mean that you don't do anything. It actually means you scrap the project. So a way to look at this is avoiding risk also means avoiding what causes the risk. To give you a good real life example, a lot of companies will not do a Windows upgrade right when a new version of Windows comes out. Too much risk. They'll wait 6 months. In fact, Microsoft makes it to where you can tell the machines to wait 6 months. It's pretty cool. That's avoiding risk. Figure it out, let everybody else figure out what the bugs are and fix them, and then they'll upgrade. It's a perfect example of avoiding risk. And then we talked about this one, mitigating risk. That's just actions that you're taking to lower risk. Also to lower the impact. So, Charles, to get back to your question, if I'm throwing money at a problem, maybe one of the criteria factors are, all righty, if I throw money at this, will it get the risk level down on it? Or one of the decisions could be which one lowers the risk more from either a qualitative or quantitative standpoint, and that's where your $10,000 might possibly go. So, all right, physical security. So those of you who don't know, John here, I won't reveal when, is taking the Security Plus test pretty soon, hence he's got a few questions today, see? Mitigating, putting case and screen protectors on cell phones. Oh yeah, sure, you're not eliminating risk, but you're making it less likely someone's going to shoulder surf you, pick you off somehow. Yeah. And of course, putting the case on it, if you happen to drop your phone, hopefully it stays in one piece. That's one thing I've been very fortunate about over the years with my phones. Of course, I've had a couple I wish I could have dropped and broken, but that would look too suspicious. I won't say which manufacturer, but Okay, let me find the physical stuff here. That's not it. Don't worry, I'll find it. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's see what we got here. Physical security controls. There we go. Okay. Good exam tip, I hope. Know which physical tools to use for situations. Even down to, all right, let me just give you a couple. What do you think? What do you think CompTIA says is the best security tool to physically secure a laptop? Did anybody know that one offhand? Yeah, cable lock. Exactly. Okay. Okay. You've got a small guest network. You need to make really sure that people on the guest network don't come close to accessing your private network. What situation does that call for? See, that'd be a good reason for an air gap. If there's like a guest kiosk machine or something, you want to make sure you protect it from a regular network. Yeah. Listen, air gap, here's a buzzword for you. Isolation. If you see a test question that says something needs to be isolated from something, probably air gap. Faraday cage is set up to protect equipment from outside interference. I'll give you a real life example. In fact, I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Okay, so let's say you go to a testing center in a high security place, and you want to make sure that nothing reaches a mobile device while you're in the testing room. Well, they can take your mobile device, they can put it inside a Faraday cage, and it's going to prevent two things. Number one, it's going to prevent data from coming in. Secondly, it's going to prevent data from coming out. So it's sort of like an outside-inside interference kind of situation that you're protecting from. You'll see this sometimes in high security places to where people go into highly secure areas and they want to make sure whatever data they have in that area stays in that area. You know, maybe they're doing some kind of like, top secret test or something like that. Yeah, Brian, SCIF rooms. Yep, it's another one. So for the exam, as far as physical stuff, you want to be able to differentiate as far as like best deterrence for certain situations. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Signs are actually good psychological deterrents. I mean, you want to understand the difference between physical and psychological deterrence. A sign is not going to deter anybody from anything physically, but it's going to make people pause. I mean, if you see a sign that says "Beware of dog," chances are you may not try to invade something nearly as it's SCIF, John, is called Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. It's a specific government building. Not on the exam, by the way, but it's just an example. It's it's sort of like a high-tech version of a Faraday cage. I'm thinking that's why Brian brought that up. Thank you, sir. So you want to know the different kinds of physical deterrents there are. Like fencing is actually a pretty good physical deterrent. Security guards, they actually can take action on things. They're pretty good deterrents. As far as like if you get any questions on storage stuff, safes and secure cabinets are your two main go-tos there. What's interesting is CompTIA actually has a best practice for like if you're trying to figure out what do you put in the safe, what do you put in a secure cabinet. Funny thing is they tag things like laptops and other computer equipment as things that should go inside secure cabinets. Other things that are more valuable should go inside of a safe. Not a great distinction. Cameras are a deterrent. If somebody sees a physical camera and it's like, okay, I'm being filmed, and they just keep walking. And funny thing that you say, there's actually I don't remember which test I saw this on, but I saw a question, and there was actually a fake camera can actually be a deterrent, believe it or not. Especially if someone's trying to case a building to see if they want to rob it or something like that, they could see a fake camera and they could be like, eh. Now some of them are going to try to be sophisticated enough to put the cameras out, but a lot of times if they see that camera, they're going to keep walking. So the main purpose, small businesses, some of them do use fake cameras. The main purpose, Kelly, is of a camera. Yes, it's more for an after the fact kind of thing, but they can be a deterrent. Yeah, well, I don't know. If someone's looking to case a place, I don't know if they're honest to begin with, but that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I'm not going to say what it was, but when I was a kid growing up, we had a sign on the front door. Nobody tried to mess with us. It was definitely a deterrent of sorts. I won't say what it is. If you guess, I will say you're correct, but there was a little sticker sign on our front door that made it clear you best probably not try to mess with our house. So, man traps are there to catch people trying to sneak into a place because you have a door on either side and they have to get through 2 security places in order to get to a secure part of a building. One thing for the exam you want to make sure you know about physical security wise, bollards, those vertical posts that you see outside, pretty close, Kelly, pretty close. Yeah, actually, okay, I'll tell you all, and remember now it's just a sign, but it said, "Never mind the dog, beware of owner." And there might have been something that looked like some Smith & Wesson thing pointing at you too. But anyway, that's what we had. Nobody came close to messing with our house. Well, not only that, for several years when I was a kid, my dad was a gun dealer and everybody knew it. So that's extra security right there. That's what you call a physical deterrent. You know what the person does for a living. It's like, okay, don't think I'll walk over here. But anyway, I digress. Bollards. Okay, so a lot of times, look, I don't know if you get a test question specifically on this, but bollards are used to keep cars out. People can get through them, but cars can't. So, and you're talking about cameras down here. Let me look up my notes on cameras. They can be a physical deterrent. Technically, you could make the argument that the camera is more of a psychological deterrent because, a camera is not going to stop somebody from entering a building. A cage will, fencing will. But motion detection, somebody mentioned that. That's another form of security. Yeah, I mean, if there's a room that's got some top secret stuff and people know for sure that if they walk in there, the lights will turn on and they'll be exposed. Guard dogs with Kevlar armor, definitely a physical deterrent, yes. Yes, indeed. You believe the hour's almost up already? This has gone quickly. Unbelievable. So, John, since you're as far as we know, you're the one taking the Security Plus next. Has this helped you at all? Oh, hey, you know what? Everyone's going to get their turn. Someone's going to be close to an exam. Someone's going to have a lot of questions. It's just you this time, John. No big deal. That's what we're here for. And, hopefully we have put a couple things in there that help other people out. So really quickly, does anybody have any other questions, Security Plus or not Security Plus related? As it's clouding up outside again. Blech. Just as a friendly reminder, I do tutoring sessions the first and third Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. That's my time every month. This is the first time I've pinch hit for Tristan in quite some time. I might pop my head into tutoring sessions every once in a while. Good, bad, or indifferent. But yeah, if you want to catch me on a tutoring session, it's the first and third Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Mountain. The link is available from your reps. I actually do it through Skype because I really don't like this GoToMeeting tool too much. But oh, that's on tape too. Huh? Well, I don't care. They know how I feel. And the other thing is, if some of you may or may not have my email address. So let me just pop this in here really quickly in the chat box. Do not hesitate to email me with questions. If you're stuck on something, sending me a screenshot is probably the best way for me to be able to help you out the fastest. But otherwise, we can always email back and forth if you get questions on things. It does not have to be Security Plus related. I take questions of all kinds. So, which I would hope, since I do most of the courses.
Jason, I got a quick question.
Yeah, George.
I set up, this is A plus or Network Plus actually.
That's fine. The hour's up.
I set up 2 laptops.
Okay.
And I put a switch in the middle of the laptops.
Okay.
Would I or would I not be able to talk to each computer back and forth? Or do I?
First thing I would do is I would get the IP addresses of the laptops and see if you can ping each other.
I did, but once I plugged the Cat5 into the switches and look at the IP addresses through ipconfig, they give me 2 different addresses.
Yeah, because switches don't give out IP addresses. So what device is giving out the IP addresses? See, my point is you can plug the 2 into a switch, they can talk to each other, but you still need to have something that's giving out the IP addresses to the 2 devices so that they can be on the same subnet so that they can talk to each other through the switch.
If you're just trying to get them to communicate, do a static IP.
Yeah, if you do, yeah, unless that's the other thing I was just going to say. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you do a static IP, then you can get them to talk to each other. But the thing is that, yeah, they need to be on the same subnet for them to be able to see each other without a whole other set of things you need to do, especially if all you're using is a switch.
Okay. All right, I got it.
Yep.
If you have one connected to the other one and the other's not, you'll typically get a 10.1 or whatever your local intranet IP is from your router, and then your default laptop IP will either be blank or 192.168 usually.
Or it might be 169.254, which in that case, you know you got a problem. But I would try assigning static IPs to both on the same subnet and then see if they'll see each other through the switch.
Okay.
That's in the absence of a DHCP server nearby, of course.
Right.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, anybody else? Well, listen, all of you, thank you very, very much for allowing me to pinch hit for Tristan today. I hope this has been helpful for you. And hey, maybe I'll see some of you on a Wednesday night. If otherwise, email me if you got questions. And Tristan will be back next week. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Thanks, Jason.